Welcome to the Soul Sisters series, where you'll get thought-driven, inspiring topics for your soul with Vonne and Brenda Rachel. Okay, so welcome to part 9 of the Soul Sisters series. I'm Vonne.
I'm Brenda.
And together, we are the Soul Sisters. So welcome. As I said before, we never get tired of doing that. So thank you for bearing with us.
We sure don't.
So last week, we talked in part 8 all about struggle, how to identify struggle. Most people know that, but we talked about some things that, present as struggle and, could be a surprise for some people. So we talked about that, how to get out of it, what motivated both Brenda and I through our various struggles. Me mostly in my bereavement as a bereaved mother from the loss of my daughter to suicide in 2005. Brenda with struggling with fibro and many disabilities, possibly all related to fibro.
Yes,
Probably.
one of them.
Yeah. So in all of the work that she has, written about in her books and Broken Spirit, Awakened Soul, and her most recent book, and me and my books, Divine Healing, and also Lessons in Surviving Suicide, is my most two most poignant books. We've talked a lot about our struggles and overcoming them. And then on this Soul Sister series, we have just some conversation to sort of feel like we're right in your living room or wherever you're watching this podcast episode or listening to this podcast episode, to inspire, to expand in every way in your life, right?
Right.
And obviously to choose the best life that you can for yourself, as we have done and continue to do. So in this episode today, we're going to talk all about purpose. And I'm not going to expand on what I think about purpose right at the moment, but I am just going to say purpose in general, how to identify it, what if you can't find it, is it even important? And we're going to talk all about divine timing and blend it in probably with the work that we have done since 2006 as angel healing practitioners. And again, how what we do, how we live, what we're sharing, just as I said, to inspire, to invite deeper thinking, can maybe help you and change your life in whatever way you may be struggling or simply want to grow. So, welcome.
Welcome.
Yeah. So, let's get right to it, sis.
Okay.
Let's just talk about purpose.
Okay.
You go and just tell me, what do you think about purpose? The thing I want to sort of get across that's different from what we hear a lot about purpose, find your purpose, live your purpose, you'll be happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, so I want to get your thoughts on what you think about finding purpose in general.
Mm-hmm.
And is it even important? Like, for those people that go like, I'm never going to find it, because I did struggle. I didn't have a clue what my purpose was until Janaea died.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So for me, I didn't have a purpose either until 2004, when I had my disability with my feet. And even though I had in the 90s, late 80s and 90s, studied to become a minister, was going in that direction, and then that didn't happen, then I was absolutely purposeless. And so I thought to myself, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Like, I was doing lots of fun things, lots of fun activities.
Right.
But I had no purpose. And for me, it was very important.
Okay.
But because I felt very, very incomplete.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, every day it was like, what am I doing? Like, just going to the office every day. I worked in an office.
Mm-hmm.
I just went to the office every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like there was something more.
Yeah.
But nothing was opening up.
Right.
Doors were opening up.
Right.
And my health wasn't operating functionally.
Right.
And so I just, anyway, I felt very...
the word to me, like for me, is coming at rudderless.
Yeah.
Rudderless.
Yeah. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but it just,
But it's
I was guessing,
great analogy, great
right?
analogy. Yeah.
And however you view your life, whether you view it as a life raft, a ship, a whatever, like when you feel like you can't steer yourself, it is a very lost and lonely and isolating experience.
Absolutely.
Right?
Exactly. And that's exactly, and I used to lay in bed at night and say, like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
Really, like, what am I doing here? I felt like I was taking up space that for no reason. Like, it was really, really, it was a real conflict, a total inner conflict with me.
Yeah. So I want to actually just speak directly to you a little bit, audience, just for a moment here, because there is a lot of in my conversations with people and having guests, that come on the show, and we talk a lot about purpose, and I think that the word purpose has gained ground over the last few years, for sure. It was really popular in the 80s and 70s and the 80s. Yeah. Purpose. And then it kind of went away a little bit. And, it was sort of for the spiritual gurus and the people that were, going to go climb the top of the mountain and, meditate and find their, God-given purpose. And I do know in my life, when I was busy raising my family, my 2 kids, married, we were traveling, we were in the diplomatic corps, lived overseas. I mean, life was busy. Life was, I'd say, actually kind of pretty exciting. It was full, for sure, as most families will find their lives quite full. It seems more when you're touched by some tragedy or illness or disability or other pain and struggle coming from myriad of things, relationship breakups, lost jobs, financial problems, lost homes, loss of some kind. And I think when it touches us in our spirit in such a way that we feel this rudderlessness, that's when we gravitate to the word purpose.
Right.
Do you think so?
I do. I think that, but I also think that there is that nugget of soul seeking within that drives the momentum to be seeking a purpose, because there are many, many people that are quite content doing their life. So I'm just saying, for myself, there was just something inside of me that kept driving me to say, there's something more. I feel there's some reason for me to be here.
Right.
But had no clue, absolutely no clue, not even an inkling of what that was.
Right. So I want to say a couple things. One is that, so sticking just to the folks right now that have a busy, contented life and basically no real problems, maybe a few little life situations that most people have, but nothing that's derailed them, and not really thinking about purpose, and that's okay.
Absolutely.
Your purpose might be just simply to be a parent and raise your kids. Your purpose might be just to establish a career and get yourself on track. All A-okay. Things that we don't necessarily think of as a purpose as such, a life, a soul purpose. So when we're talking about purpose, we're talking soul purpose here.
Right.
So I'll just make that difference. And I will say, I believe very strongly that a soul purpose can be to raise a family.
Absolutely.
Holy smoly. Yeah. Or be a guardian to pets, or, people who end up having kind of bigger purposes, and they go and, they're, working in some kind of global capacity or, conservation capacity, whatever. Yeah. So those are very, very big purposes. But when we're talking here purpose, and years ago, when I was doing angel readings for many years, I did them for 10 years, but many people that came for readings wanted to know their purpose. Yeah. And so whatever drives you to want to know your purpose, first of all, I want to say, let it be okay if you haven't discovered it yet, but do be excited that you have found this sort of tickle inside, this little moment, like this little twitch or whatever you want to call it, nagging, nugget, something driving you to go, or be curious, if not driving you to be curious about, I think I'm here for something else.
Right. So I was just going to interject and just not add, but emphasize that the drive, it's a drive. It's something that I can't explain, and it just happened, and it was just within me that I just knew. It was a knowing that I was here to do something.
Yeah.
Not having a clue what that something was.
Yeah. The other thing that I'll add to that is when I was a child, I was very curious. And I remember staring out the bedroom window. I may have mentioned this to you in past. And I would just look at the big sky, and I'd go like, what am I here for? And I was like maybe 12, 13, 14. And in a former episode, we were talking a lot about, actually it was episode 1. And we were talking a lot about how we were raised very much with a church influence and went on to, basically non-denominational type practice of Christianity, or a Christian practice, which led for sure me into a more metaphysical and certainly my spiritual practice by my mid-20s. But when I was 12, I went up with Billy Graham in our small town, you see, because I just felt this calling to come up. And as I was saying in that episode, just, sort of wasn't being ordained, but being touched by Billy Graham, just sort of as a recognition, I'm here to do God's work in some way. And so that would have been a nudging, an inkling of something, but way too young. I was way too young to put the pieces together. So for me, it wasn't until I was 48 years old, when Janaea took her life in 2005, that all the pieces kind of went tink, 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 and the puzzle was built. And I knew what I was here to do, but I still didn't know how that was going to unfold. And put simply, I was here to basically change the way we view loss and grief, so that we can better support the bereaved as they rebuild their lives. That's essentially the work I do. But I didn't have the words for it until many years later. So your purpose can evolve.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I guess you can have more than one purpose, can't you?
Oh,
You can?
I think they can be intermingled for sure.
Intermingled.
Yes.
Yeah. So for me, my purpose very much was to be a mom. That drove me. And my daughter actually came to me when I was 16 years old in dreams. And I dreamt about her until I had her at age 25. And so it was not a coincidence that when she passed away, she came to me in dreams and still does. And that's obviously the relationship that we have. But she started when I was 16 years old. So I already knew what she was going to look like. And this little baby was always visiting me. And actually, when I had her, she looked pretty much exactly how she had come to me in my dreams. So that's just a little aside and a fun thing, but it all tied into the purpose.
Exactly.
The purpose I was going to have her, the purpose of the work I was going to do when she left me all too soon. So I just want to encourage you, and I definitely want to have, hear your thoughts on it. It says, for the people that may be struggling, please don't struggle. If you have a nudging, right? Stop, be quiet, listen. And I had to do that through all of my bereavement, and particularly in the first many years when I was just this lost vessel. And so I'm really not just like going back and trying to think what it was like, 40 odd years ago, when I'm trying to connect to a purpose, but not really diligently, but just being curious. I literally lost my identity and had to rebuild myself. And I was rudderless for many, 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 many years, and just kind of floundering and just following, one footstep after the next footstep to gain my ground. And as I just said, I couldn't put the new or the bigger purpose, or this is what it was all about. Freak, her death. Whoa. And should anything as dramatic and tragic happen to me in the future, I'll probably have to reevaluate that. We were just talking, weren't we just talking the other day? I'm not sure. Please, I hope I'm not here to learn more.
Yeah.
Like we were just
go through like negative things.
Like another major overhaul of my life.
Yeah.
We were having coffee the other day.
Yeah.
And I just said that to Brandon. I was like, oh God, I'm tired. I don't think I could do that, because I've given this my all. And so going back to whatever inkling, niggling, nudging you have within, listen to your heart, listen to your gut, be curious, and let your nudging take you where it may to find whatever you're meant to find that is surely to lead you to ultimately what you are on the planet to do, if you feel it that strongly.
So I just also want to say, it didn't happen to either of us to find our purpose through a positive way. That doesn't mean we had to, chose to go through very negative situations, hardship, to learn, to come to the identity of our purpose. That does not mean that for any other person on this planet,
Right.
that needs to be their truth. To find your purpose can come to you in a very positive manner. We just made choices in our charting when we came here to have it be negative experiences that drove us to our purpose.
Yeah, for me, very painful and rooted in suffering. But that's the work I do, is to be a bright light for others who have chosen their own pain and suffering. And I would say that purpose comes to us. We're driven more to connect to that something more. Purpose, the divine, our soul, our spiritual practice through hardship, pain, and potentially tragedy and suffering. A lot of people will find, it could be ill health. It could be near death. It's something that really, if you don't come to it through knowing as a child, like I also really connected with writing. And I tell this story a little bit elsewhere where, I was about 12 years old and got, I think Mom had an old Olivetti typewriter. Yeah. And so this would be in the late 60s. And I would just sit on the bed and just, somehow I typed, probably with two fingers, but nevertheless, typed out stories. I loved it. I also, a little bit younger than that, cut out from the Sears catalog. I remember having a dollhouse, but I was fascinated by all these picture-perfect pages in the Sears catalog that you'd get every season. And I would I would cut them out meticulously, and I'd have my mom and my dad and the boy and the girl, and then I'd put the living room together and the bath. Well, I don't know about the bathroom, but the living room, the kitchen. So I put my house together, and I'd lay all these pieces out on my bed. And I guess I would just sit there and literally dream, daydream would be a better way to say that, about just a perfect family. Right down to imagining, say in fall, October, November, cold, windy, maybe even rainy weather, and they would walk past my house and it would just emit all these perfect cooking smells and warmth and cheer and, I guess love, although I wasn't thinking about it in terms of love. And what I was doing in my mind is not only preparing to create that in my life, so I'd go so far as to say tapping into a, well, it's not exactly a signpost for that. I consider people like, you're my signpost or something like that in interchange. But this was more like just tapping into some kind of connection with the plan for the incarnation, starting right back then, because I did become a writer. I did create that home exactly as I described it. I did have a son and a daughter. And so the tapestry, you and I have talked about soul tapestries, and I have long for many years felt a soul, the incarnation, that we're here and with this piece of the soul, thinking of the huge tapestry as the bigger soul. And I'm not an expert in this, and this is just how I have adopted it to understand it in my experience. And this incarnation is just a little tiny, piece of that fabric, fragment of that creates the bigger thing that I'm hoping when at least I transition, I'll be able to go, yeah, it all made sense. And, when you have this life review, all made sense. And this incarnation was key for you, as painful as it was, and joyous, to complete this part of it, whatever we're doing. Anyway, that's how I look at it. How do you look at it? How do you look at soul?
Well, I look at soul as this is just a fragmentation. Yeah. It's just as if you took off a piece of cookie and you have a bite of a cookie and you've got a cookie and the whole rest of the cookie and and it's a cookie that never ends. Like it's not going to all get devoured because I don't know. Anyway, I haven't really, got an analogy for that, but just that this is for me is just one little breadcrumb.
Breadcrumb. That's a great way of saying it. Breadcrumb.
Yeah.
Do you think that when we cross, we get the understanding of the much bigger picture of the energy, the light we are, or whatever we are in our truth, that's not this physical being? And while we're not talking about afterlife here, I've done a couple episodes on it. And there are people that do work in this. P.H. Atwater is a huge researcher of afterlife. There's tons of stuff online you can research. But anyway, so understanding, for those of us that understand and adopt this, belief that we are much, much more than this corporeal body, this physical dead weight body.
Yeah.
And so whatever we return to, do you think we get the whole picture for the incarnation then, and that piece, that crumb that we were, how it fits into to the existence?
I think that for me, when I go and I'm laying, however it is, I will know that I'm making my transition.
Yeah.
And no matter how fast or how slow the process is. But I also believe that from the moment that I pass, I'll be light. I'll just be light.
Yeah.
And I really don't know.
Yeah.
I'll see the whole picture.
Not sure we need to.
But that's a human kind of.
I know.
And so, because I don't think pictures and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What I'm saying.
I do know what you're saying.
Because that's concrete.
No, I know.
And I just, the way I see myself leaving is just a flash of light.
Oh, interesting.
That's how I see myself.
Yeah, and maybe that's how you will go, because many books I've read over the years, and anything about people who have experienced near-death experience where they've it's really a death experience where they've literally died. And you and I have talked about it. It shouldn't be near-death. It should just be a death experience and you've come back. It's not near. They've died. They've been pronounced scientifically, medically dead. And then they come back.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are firm believers that, and also spiritual leaders over the decades have basically proclaimed that the passing is what's in our consciousness and essentially what we want it to be. And I actually felt really comforted by that because, a lot of us are afraid to die, understandably. And I don't think it's, listen, I'm going to say for me, I don't think it's that I'm afraid to die. It's more how I'm going to go. I just don't want to be in pain. Other than that, I'm good. I'm good to go.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I want to go. I'm not saying that. But my daughter, Janaea, has showed me so much and so many times over the years that, it's kind of like a party. It's like, yoo-hoo, and nothing to be afraid of. And so these people, millions of them that have actually spoken about their near-death experience, their death and their return to the body, and almost none of them wanted, I don't think any of them, I don't think I've ever read any that wanted to come back into the body. None. And so if that's a comfort for any of us, we can hold on to that. And we kind of got down a side conversation here a little bit in terms of coming it back to the purpose. But I think that why I'm talking about that is because when you are like kickstarted into, I know there's more, and purpose is quite often connected to this feeling of knowing there's more, then all of that comes into it. And we understand, or for sure adopt the practice for our life. So conducting ourselves, trusting in the process of the human experience and its, limitations, that we can depend and ask for and trust, the, I'll just say the resources that are there that can't be seen, that they're going to help us through all of this human struggling. And I couldn't have done my surviving the way I guess needed to survive in the certainly the first hours, weeks, months, years of losing Janaea, without the angels.
Right.
And could I see them? No. Had I physically experienced them to that point? Yes. Enough that gave me just that teeny inkling. For the audio, I'm holding my little, like a pinch of salt here, fingers up to demonstrate that. I just had that little tiny inkling of hope and trust that they were really with me. And honestly, when you open up that whole kind of canvas of possibility, you just really can't go back to the, boxed in human way of thinking and, just living life.
Well, once there's more, or once I knew there was more, there was more.
There was more. What a great way to say it. Once I knew there was more, there was more.
Yeah. And it's like, and it was a sense of comfort.
Yeah.
And, it was just a, once that, like for me, my purpose was defined or given to me when I was off with my feet, with my plantar fasciitis.
Yeah.
And plantar fasciitis. Anyway, and the music started coming, started channeling the music to me, and the words and the music, sometimes simultaneously, sometimes not.
Yeah.
But anyways, and I then asked the angels laying on the couch in agony, what is it you want me to learn from this experience? That was a direct question to them. And from that moment on, my purpose has evolved.
Yeah. And in earlier episodes, we do talk more in depth about our actual connection to purpose and our spiritual journey and all of that in earlier episodes. Yeah. But while you were talking, I was thinking the other thing that's really important to share is that the more that we open ourselves up to what we can't see, the more we can be of service. The more that this energy can come in to our beings to be then released and channeled, shared, communicated in the way that we were gifted, chose to be on this planet to fulfill that quote unquote purpose.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't think we can say anything more about that. It's just if you are looking for purpose, the other thing that came to me recently with a guest on the show was talking about it in terms of what are you really good at? What's your gift? What's your gift? And when this person, this guest I had, when we talked about when you think about what's my gift instead of got to go after the purpose, got to make this life worthy. And if you have more than one major gift, I don't know what it is. It could be listening, whatever it is. Make a list of all the things that you're really talented at, good at, as a human being, and refine it until you if you could only be one thing, or you could only serve in one way, okay, maybe two or three, but your top three, but narrow it down. And if you need to think about it like that, a lot of people when they're teaching, coaching, talk about, what do you love to do? And I do want to acknowledge that and talk about that just a little bit here, because when you're in major struggle and pain, it's really hard to even see, the day, the next minute.
Like, no way I would have even been able to get out a pad of paper and a paper.
No. And so you're not thinking about what you love to do. You hate everything. Let's just be really clear. You're angry and, you hate everything. You're in pain. And even if you don't hate everything and you're not angry, you're maybe too sick, maybe too weak, maybe too limited, whatever, to start thinking about even the possibility of tapping into something greater than yourself and really fulfilling the incarnation in the way that, you could fulfill it and experience it completely opposite to what you're doing right now. And I really do get that. So we did talk a lot about the struggle in part 8 and, how to stay motivated. So I invite you to actually, check that episode out. But just to sort of sum it up, you have to find something. I believe it takes the courage, the willingness. I've spoken before about the possibility that it possibly comes from the disposition that we chose, the personality, how we were born. And I'm going to be born with, or I just inherited genes that makes me, see positive instead of negative, But if you're caught in that sort of cycle where the dominant approach to life is negative and everything is a problem, because if you're positive, you're already going to be looking for, what can I do to change this? What can I do to better myself? What can I do to improve it? You're just going to be wired that way. But if you're not, so speaking to those of you who may be watching this and are caught, truthfully, you have to truthfully look at yourself and understand what your viewpoint is, how you're doing life. And if you're doing it from the whole, everybody else is wrong, poor me, and again, we talked about this all in part 8, then I would encourage you, invite you, and even to some degree challenge you to go, wait a minute, what if I didn't think that way? What if I flipped it to just the opposite, even just on this one thing? And allow yourself to feel some good, because I really believe, just in tying that piece up, that anybody caught in a poor me and, life is hard and, life is happening to me, I have no power, don't even think of it in terms of power, just basically poor me, that is like pain, plain and simple. Just coming from a very painful place, unresolved pain, that is causing them to feel stuck.
Well, and I would also say from my own experience, when I got into the Ferris wheel of pain, and I couldn't get myself off of it, it keeps perpetuating. And so there's no escape. And it's just like if you see a Ferris wheel going round and round and round and round, and the only way that I was even remotely possible to step off of that Ferris wheel and see a little bit of light was my faith in the angels.
Yeah.
And my trusting in the angels and my working with the angels to see some bit of brightness. And actually, when I adopted the attitude that I created my own reality with every thought that I think, and that became the primary step for me, that my whole life changed.
I think what you're saying, we revisit this in most of the episodes because it's at the core. It's the core foundation of how Brenda and I both live our lives. We are responsible for all that has happened to us. We are, we have the power within us to create what we want.
Correct.
Plain and simple. So we live like that and have lived like that for decades.
Correct.
And
we don't blame anybody. No, we don't blame anybody or anything for what has happened to us.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that it was all part of our creation of our reality.
Right. And so, again, for those doubting and going, yeah, well, you might have it all together. We do have it together. And again, in former episodes, we tell you how we deal with things like anxiety and I live with PTSD, how I manage that. So, it's not that we're completely challenge free, but we're solution oriented thinking and, thinkers. And when we need something, we pop the request up to the angels, and that request is always fulfilled.
Yeah.
And we have fine-tuned our lives to the point that that's just our reality. So it pains me to see people suffer and struggle when they don't think they have a way out or can't see a way out, because you can. And before my daughter died, she would be 40 now. So when she was, like 9 and 10 and, and through, her teens and, and all the friends I had. And I was always encouraging and helping them when they had some problems and seeing in them what they couldn't see for themselves. And I didn't have a wide circle of friends, but, I certainly was involved socially. Certainly when we lived in the diplomatic corps, had lots and lots of people around. And I was the go-to person. That, you want to be cheered up, you want to be motivated. And when Janaea died at age 22, all that fell away. They weren't there for me. And I have no blame. I'm just saying they were not there for me. And I had to completely rebuild my life. And the reason they weren't there for me is because I was their pillar. And when that pillar crumbled, they didn't know how to be a support to me. And it took me a few years to understand that, and not be hurt by that. And once I saw that, I have absolutely no anger, no resentment, no feelings of, like begrudging them, any of that, none of that. In fact, I was thankful that it happened because it was one aspect of the bereavement and the grief experience that I had that other people don't have. There might be other people out there, in a tragic situation, bereavement, whatever it is, that their friends rally and they're all around them. But more often than not, I've, talked to and met people who've had to completely rebuild their social circles and be with people who do have the strength in the stomach to be around people who have suffered what they would never want to go through. And that's okay. I'm glad that happened to me, as I said, so I can understand that segment of the population. But the reason I'm talking about that and linking this to when you feel powerless to create the life you want, and it's easier to blame others and life itself, the world, everybody's against you. Pain does that to you. It isolates you, and isolation impacts your mental and emotional state, and you immediately start creating this story, this repeat record in your head about how worthless you are, how nobody is listening, how nobody respects you, how nobody gets you, how much you don't deserve anything more. Maybe you really do deserve what you're struggling with. And the list goes on. And so that's the cycle that you just have to get a little tiny wedge of light in there, a little tiny wedge of hope in there, a little tiny wedge of something different than that cycle, than what that cycle is filled with, to leave room for a little bit more positivity, hope, and the feeling that maybe I can get through this. It's a very, it's not as simple as I'm making it sound.
No, and I understand exactly what you're saying.
Do you? Yeah,
I do.
Yeah. It's just that willingness to just take the first step.
Exactly. It's just one little thing. Like for me, after I had my suicide attempt and I didn't die, it was almost as hard to come back from that because I didn't want to be here.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was a real battle inside of me. Now, what do I do?
Yeah.
Because I'm here and I have to start over from square one.
Yeah.
In a very, very negative and ill health place.
So a really good example of that is building on what Brenda just said, is both in our respective ways at various times, various decades, different decades, neither of us wanted to be here.
Correct.
And so that sliver, and it might have been, more like a huge pillar, but the choice to be here, both of us, and go, I'm choosing to be here. Now what? That was the opening.
Yeah.
That was the opening.
Yeah.
But it could be as, gentle as saying, waking up with the same pain, the same struggle, the same, like we say, that every day is going to be the same unless you change it, and going, I want today to be different. And just by doing that, you might get a flash of a thought through your mind.
Yeah.
You might decide to taste your first cup of tea or coffee in the morning differently. You might, just decide to make one small change in your routine that is a little bit better for you than what it has been. However it comes to you, an appreciation for someone that you've, felt a lot of anger for. The list goes on. However it comes to you, that flips the switch on the otherwise, routine thinking that is causing this pain cycle, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, just to keep going round and round and round and round, like you said earlier, the Ferris wheel. That's enough, in my experience and my view, to kickstart it and gently allow more and more of what you really do want in your life to filter through. And we can't handle big changes. Here, that's the other thing I want to say, is years ago, if you remember, it was my 50th birthday, and you and I went to the tropics together. And at that point, I was like, and I'd only been bereaved 2 years, and not even 2 years. And I had this grand vision of being this leader and being on stages and going around the world and, and all this stuff. And, that all fell away. And I don't knock myself for having those visions in my head back then. But as the years went on and I didn't achieve not one single thing of what that vision, probably highly influenced by the thought leaders of the time that, were associated with The Secret that had become really big in 2007, 2008, and me going, I want to be one of them. I want to be one of them, and leaders. And I just didn't have the capacity in any way, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, or physically, to ever carry it out. And here I am, 16 years later, from, let's just say, 2007, and don't even want those things anymore.
Right.
Don't even want there. It's way too much for me. And so, we also talked in earlier episodes about being hit by limitations, disabilities, and things like that. And we've revisited that a few times in this particular segment. And coming to the end of this particular, series focus, is that we've both been hit by that. That's why we're sitting here sharing. We've both been hit with disabilities, limitations, that it's taken me years to adjust to that. What would you say for yourself?
Yeah, well, for myself, I just accept. I'm just in a place of acceptance.
Yeah.
When things are not going right in my body, and I just go, okay, well, today it's, I don't get upset. I don't fight the process. It's just, I was going to say the analogy that I have, because I love analogies, and the angels give them to me all the time, is thoughts are either positive or negative. So imagine you have a magnet, and whatever you put out there, whatever thought it is, if it's a negative thought, it's just going to boomerang back to the magnet. And I just keep boomeranging, until whatever. And the only way that you're ever going to make room for a positive thought to come in is clean the magnet off and have it all be wet, so nothing can stick to it any longer. And So in our thoughts, when we just say to our thoughts, we're the ones that have to say, no more. I don't want to attract any more thoughts like this that are going to keep sticking to my magnet in my brain and, that I can't let go of, because the only person that it's harming is me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not harming another. Well, it might be harming another individual, but I'm just saying the person that it will harm the most is myself. And yet I am the one that's creating it, and I am the one that can stop it.
Right.
So,
So I will just, sum up and acknowledge that you came when you were hit with disabilities from a life devoted to outdoors, rafting, hiking, walking, enjoying all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I didn't come from that, but in other ways, that's sort of the same as me going, well, I want to really be on the stage and talking and motivating people. And I have been on stages, and I have done that in bits and blurbs in my life. But as a steady career, here I am, 2023 going into 2024 soon. And I just don't want that commitment. I don't want to have to be running around. Even if I really wanted to jump on planes and always be going to different cities and filling, conference rooms and stuff and motivating people. It's like, whoa, I'm tired just thinking about it. So you and I talk a lot about, the things that we used to do,
mm-hmm.
even maybe a couple years or a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And just going, yeah, I'm kind of done with that. And it isn't about age. It is all about where we find ourselves physically and, in our capacity to function.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe for me at the same rate my brain feeds me information. And so I've had to take time to learn to sort of process what my brain's telling me. Oh, you could do this, you could do this, you could do this. And then I have to just sort of wait a minute and digest it, think, and go, okay, no, I need to either modify it or I need to let that go altogether.
Exactly.
And we have had, again, former discussions in earlier episodes about this idea, this notion when you have a spiritual practice and when you're in tune with all this wonderful divine stuff that speaks of perfection and wholeness. And then in the human body, when you're actually not that way, and how to respect and honor the humanness of who we are, along with the wholeness and perfection of the spiritual self, and merge that however we can merge that and be okay with it.
Yeah.
Just be okay if we're not perfect in human form. It's okay.
Yeah.
Still see yourself as perfect and strong when you look in the mirror, and look past what the physical limitations and blocks appear to be to you, and love that inner being of who you really are, which you can actually see through your eyes, by the way. Don't be looking at body parts. Look at your eyes. And a practice that I had developed long ago and have, again, talked with some guests about is to tell yourself you love yourself by name. So when you're looking in the mirror and you make a habit and a practice of looking straight in your eyes, in your reflection, and you tell yourself, I really love you. And in my case, it would be, I really love you, Vonne. Thank you for bearing what you have borne in this body. You did a great job. I really, really love you, your name. And it is a very powerful way to start opening up that little sliver of an opening that you need for the little light to get in and all the positive things that are going to follow. And also to really start believing that you love yourself. Because more often than not, when you do that mirror exercise, and again, it's very important to add your name, to personalize it, you don't necessarily really believe that. Doesn't matter. Keep saying it enough until one day you really do believe it, and you really can feel the compassion and empathy and divinity of who you really are for yourself, and really appreciate what you really have borne in this life, particularly the more difficult it has been.
Yeah, very powerful.
Yeah. Thanks, angels. Had to say that. Did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just got one other little thing. So we live in a human condition. And so when we can allow our human condition to evolve from spiritual conditioning, I think that it will be a very transformative process, and that we will evolve into open and receptive human beings who are consciously aware that the co-creation we have with spirit is what we came here to do, and our gifts will evolve from that purpose.
Yeah, so beautifully said as well. All of that just to say we are here to encourage you, inspire you, and share that our journeys have been filled with ups and downs coming from the dysfunction that we came from. And it would have been extremely easy for both of us to turn out into people that were God, life was hard, and blame,
everything,
our family dysfunction.
Yeah.
And, which was apparent, attempting suicide numerous times when we were children. And then just things not being, dealt with properly, due to a whole bunch of, factors in the 60s. And stigma. We went through a lot of that as children. And it was really interesting. So growing up, and that's what this whole series has been about, is how both Brenda and I came to a choice is probably the word I'm looking for, to not let that impact how we were going to live our life, and how ultimately our lives unfolded, to embrace everything we have talked about throughout this series in our books, for me on the podcast, and in my coaching, and as angel healing practitioners in every way that we function and live our lives. So, I think that in closing, I don't have a whole lot more to add except divine timing. We did want to talk about that just a little bit. And it is just so important when you do start to embrace and then allow everything we've talked about and everything else that you'll, welcome into your life through other teachers, coaches, resources, books, knowledge, etc. Wisdom that just comes to you with your own channel being open. And apply that. Make it a practice. That you are going to live this way. Make it a lifestyle, right? That just it becomes just who you are. You can't separate that spiritual component, that spiritual practice, from who you are. It doesn't mean that everyone around you has to be in the same spiritual space. In fact, likely they won't, and it will present its own frustrations, guaranteed. But maybe that's what gives us sort of the balance. And because, living in that world and only in that world all the time is also not healthy for us. We do have to come back down to earth and, touch base with the human part of us. And so that will come to you in the way it needs to. But for you, whether you are, again, just expanding your consciousness, you're already at the top of your spiritual game, you're just enjoying these conversations because they're two sisters who come from very different experiences, wanting to, reconnect in our later years and really respect those differences and understand that as blood sisters, we are also very much soul sisters.
Exactly.
And couldn't wait to start recording this series, which we planned 7 years ago. 7 years ago. Took us 7 years to do it. But, you needed the platform. So, hey, so it's just really, everything is in divine timing, and best to get out of our own way and let things happen as they're going to happen. And meantime, go busy your life with other wonderful things while that request is out there, and it will happen when we're ready to receive it.
Absolutely.
Would you say?
I would absolutely agree.
Yeah. And I will say one of the things we got in one of the trainings we did was, when you put your request in for wanting something, so starting with a will to want and be more, an acceptance that you have the power within to create the life that you want, a commitment to a practice, and to, and have the discipline to embrace the tools, the resources, the people, the experiences that are going to help you with that growth, many which will come through lessons. If you've already been through a ton of lessons, a ton of crap, a ton of things that has been, driving you to be in the poor me modality, to rethink them and thank yourself for all you have been through and see what the lessons are for you in reviewing some of those bigger experiences that have been painful. And where you need to work with therapists and so on, please seek medical intervention where you need that if something comes at you, because we all do that. I've been to therapy many years of my life, and we get medical intervention as and when we need it. So please do that for yourself as well, especially if you're going to attempt to revisit trauma and stuff like that. Everything we're sharing with you is just sharing our personal experience. This is not medical advice, not that we gave that. This is not telling you how to live your life. This is just saying, hey, we did this. This is just talking and motivating, coaching each other through things that we have been through and may feel challenged by currently, which not a lot, but we still, we still have our little things.
Need to discuss with each other and get feedback and
and kind of like, this sucks, and I deal with I wouldn't say rudderless, but I would definitely say a little bit of difficulty envisioning my own future and just not really knowing what I want. And I really personally think a lot of that comes from just the rebuilding I've been doing, and I've been rebuilding sort of in stages and cycles over the last 18 years. And I let it be a little bit of fun. And I just kind of go, And so I'm practicing bringing joy into my life on a daily basis, embracing one or more joys every day, things that really made me smile and just be so happy within. And that is having a profound effect on changing the overall daily experience of really enjoying my life for me, and which has been a bit of a struggle to arrive at that point because of the bereavement. And it's very different wanting to be joyful for yourself as opposed to just wanting to be joyful for other people, your family, your spouse, your partner, your children, whoever it is. When you own it for yourself, it's you taking responsibility for how happy you want to be.
Absolutely.
Right? You have to take responsibility equally for how much joy you want to experience in this life and goodness, as you do for the pain and suffering you currently may be experiencing, have experienced, and want to toss it and nope, not for me, right?
Each thought weighs the same amount.
Oh my gosh. I'm writing that down, break. So I do want to thank you for joining us on any of the episodes or all of the episodes that you have tuned into either by audio or video on YouTube. Really, I hope that what we've covered in this Soul Sisters series has impacted you in some way. So is there anything else that you want to add? We are definitely closing this series topic out as mentioned. And anything you want to add?
No, I think that it's been a wonderful, wonderful time sharing with you.
Yeah.
And I just really, really enjoyed this.
Right. Can't promise you we won't tuck in another episode in the Soul Sisters playlist, but really it has been amazing for both of us.
A really enlightening journey for me.
Yeah,
to share this experience with you. So.
Right, because I think we've learned a little bit about each other.
Yes.
And as we've said many times, we've left this as a legacy for each other as well.
Yeah.
And are really happy to have been able to include you in this legacy along with us for this ride of our life.
Exactly.
Anyway, I love you, Seth.
I love you too, dear.
So thanks again for tuning in. Together, we are the Soul Sisters.
Love you, honey.
And I wouldn't have chosen another one if I had the chance.
So
thanks for being my sis.
Oh, thank you too, sis.
Love you guys.
Love you.